Welcome to Green Crush with Alan Park. This is the Green Crush, and what do we do with the Green Crush? The green is the cannabis, the crushing is the laws, and the nonsensical ways, and the one-sided story, and the illegality of it, and the suppression of it, and the hiding of it. That's what we're here to talk about today. I didn't die, and this is why. But I would like to change my tone a little bit. I think I've been a little bit too far over the line with ushering in these new available things, these technologies. And it is dangerous on a certain level. And it is something that should be restricted. Let's open up this particular episode with a segment called, What About the Children? So here's about the children. There's been a lot of talk about the safety of children regarding the issues surrounding this show. What about their brains? What about their minds? What are they thinking of? And maybe my promotion of this particular item could be considered leading them astray. And so that's why I'd like to advocate a full 100% ban, you know, until we've done some more research, until we've done some more work on understanding the technology here. But I propose a ban on smartphones. Yeah. This is the same stupid fucking argument that always gets used for cannabis. So now I'm going to say that it's the same thing for smartphones. Death by selfies in the newspaper. A disturbing trend, how narcissistic daredevils are not only putting their lives on the line, but also officers and the public. So that's everyone, right? There's the public, there's officers, and then there's people taking pictures of themselves with cell phones. And it's dangerous when you do it on a mountain or near an elevator shaft or some giant building that you've climbed on top of. And we know that people are doing this because they have these phones. And we know the phones, well, they enjoy those phones. They get messages on them, and there are positive attributes to the smartphone or the cell phone. But I say we should just ban them anyway until all of the data has been taken in, because that's the same position that they're pushing towards and sticking their heels into regarding cannabis usage. So why am I upset about that? I'm not really upset about it so much as I'd like to point it out. I've got a lot of notices from folks. I was going to say emails, but some of them are Twitters, but, you know, contact saying, you know, why are you pushing this so hard? And the reason I'm pushing it so hard is because if you're familiar with how a pendulum works, you'll know that when it spends most of its time on the far side of the swing, it's not going to right away come to the other side. It's gonna take some time to go through its little arc. And I'm just pulling on that thing as hard as possible, that fucking clock piece, to get it over there. Because a lot of the tricks and ruses that these folks are using to fool us about cannabis and what it is and what it does and how it works and what it's good for and what it isn't good for is by the suppression of knowledge. And that's just basically keeping knowledge in a little box. And it's available knowledge, and I've found a lot of it myself, but they just want to keep it quiet so that a lot of people don't know about it. And then you can build the argument against it. You can build an argument against, what about the children? What about glass? What about power saws? I've said this before, I'll say it again, but, you know, I'll stop once I get an answer. Have not got a sensible answer to that yet. So welcome to the Crush, episode 4. What do we have for you? I'd like to make a few announcements. Of course, our wonderful theme song provided by Legna, Zeg. I'll spell it for you. Legna and then Zeg. Fine instrumentalist. And you can find the work of this particular person or individual or collective on YouTube. And that piece that we open with is called The Reflection. That's pretty cool stuff. And we are broadcasting from another sunny, hot day. I do not have my tie on at the moment because of the heat. So that means that some of the things that I might say might not be true because I'm not wearing a tie. And you can only believe stuff when people are wearing ties, whether they're bankers or politicians or sitting at a desk at 10 o'clock at night telling you the news. So I don't have a tie today because it's hot, and I'm enjoying it, though. I do like the heat. We're broadcasting from the Pacific Junction Hotel. Come down next week and step in and take a look. It's a wonderful place. And it is at 234 King Street East in Toronto. Eggplant Digital Network. It's part of the Eggplant Independent Creative Content Hub. This is a fantastic thing we've got going on here. Of course, Raw Mike Richards. There's a guy named Russell working here. He's always here, though, right? He's always here. So it doesn't matter what show it is. It's just the host plus Russell. That's what we should really have 10 shows called the host plus Russell. That's really all it is. Russell's the unsung hero. And so that we have that out of the way. I'll got some ads for you later on. Puff Jam, Karma Cup, cool things to attend. Now let's get to the business of the show. Klutzing it up here with the microphone. So, what's been happening for the last week in cannabis promotions? Well, I say that if you wake up with cancer, your doctor says your death is soon and inevitable. What to do? A plant. That's it. That's my whole premise. It's not to sit around and eat cheesies, although that does sometimes come into it. But I definitely do recommend checking out this particular medicine, particularly if you are unwell or if you don't want to be unwell, because it's a preventative measure as well. It's people ask me all the time, is it a preventative? Do you use a maintenance schedule after you've, helped yourself out of trouble with this? You have to do it every day, or do you have to do it every year, or how does it work? The best answer to that is that you need to get involved yourself. You need to get involved yourself with this particular item. You can grow it. You can buy it. You can read a lot of laws and rules about it. But when it comes down to if it's going to save your life or not, I don't really pay any heed to those markers, those indicators. A lot of reasons why. Let's get to just having a coffee there. It's pretty hot out here, but I'm drinking coffee. I don't understand it. Anyway, let's burn this Twitter page and get right to some of the incredible developments that we've had in the world of cannabis as we slowly creep towards some kind of bizarre legalization that I could say for the life of me I don't know why, but that's absolutely untrue. I do know why. But if you think about this particular movement flipping over like a pancake, and then it just gets complicated. What I mean is right now it's illegal, later on it's going to be legal, or so they say. But meanwhile, the police are what are they doing? They're making more laws. They're making more avenues of enforcement available for themselves. You would think that when something becomes legal, there are no more problems around it, whether or not you can use the thing. But somehow we're going from an illegal substance that has a certain amount of laws to a supposedly legal substance that has an infinite number of ways to take you down in a legal sense. Because these cats didn't want to lose their gig, and they've been sitting in back rooms retooling and trying to figure out how exactly can they possibly maintain a control over a society that is now moving towards legalizing and normalifying this particular plant that's been around forever. It's been around as long as we have. Whether we were born here or jettisoned in from some other galaxy, who knows? That's a different show. But let's go through some of the headlines. I round them up and I'll toss them out, and you could think about them, and then maybe you'll write a letter to me or a Twitter or something, or somebody. Reach out to your MP. Just ask them some questions. It's always about the police and the children. They've got this like merry-go-round of reasons why it's not okay. But this is some of the stuff that's really pissing me off. So let's get to that. That so many people for such a long time have been fighting cannabis availability, have been repressing it and suppressing it and going... They're the enemies of its availability. Let's put it that way. But now somehow they are the same people poised to profit from and control the availability of cannabis. You know, for years you had large drugstore chains fighting against the availability of cannabis, because the truth is, once you get some cannabis into your system and you've got those little aches and pains and the little headache and the digestive problems, it gets rid of so many different problems. It's not a panacea, get rid of everything, but it's certainly effective enough to have it immoral to be illegal. So it floors me to the full degree that someone who would fight so hard against its awareness and usage and acceptance of marijuana, such as the mayor of Toronto, Mayor John Tory. He's been against this forever. He's been supporting the police arresting people who are trying to provide this medical need for all kinds of folks. He doesn't want it. He's fighting against it. He believes the cops should take people down. And then boom, CBC News all of a sudden, now they want a marijuana tax to help the city handle the increased costs. Okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about, framing the fucking story. Help the city handle the increased costs. That's what they're going to tell you, and they don't bring the other side of the story. So thanks for listening to this show, and I could have called this show The Other Side of the Story, really. But it takes too long, and I couldn't get a cool logo for that. So John Tory wants a marijuana tax. So how do these people really think this is going to go? We're going to have medical cannabis or recreational cannabis. That's really not as nice, the recreational kind. We can still look down our noses on those people. But we're going to have cannabis. It's going to be strictured and strictly controlled, and all of the difficulties that are the antithesis of the awareness that this particular substance brings to your mind. But at the same time, paying a federal tax on it, paying a provincial tax on it, paying a city tax on it, it's ridiculous. What is it going to be, like $100 a gram by the time this all gets through? It's just far too much money going into the pockets of people who have been fighting against the use of the substance. If you don't know you're under control at that point, I really don't know what to say. We can't have a triple level. It will literally be $5,000, $6,000 an ounce. If that's a pound, sorry, if that's what we're going to be charging people. So he says that in the letter to the premier of the province, who also wants to stick her grubby little fingers into it's such a fucking prick show. So what it works out to, now I'm losing the tether of what I was trying to walk my way through, this quagmire of bullshit, these laws that they keep throwing up against this availability. Because even if it's wrong, and it isn't, you really don't have any right to tell someone they can't do it when you're sitting there tipping back your 4th gin and tonic that night. I don't know why folks don't see that. But yeah, John wants a share of the pot revenues because City of Toronto will be forced to pick up the costs of policing and enforcement. What world is it okay that you've now got a legal thing and it's now more expensive than it was before? It's now more difficult to contain. It's now more officers required. It's now more policing, more control on a thing that's legal. You know, it doesn't make sense. And no one that I know of other than myself is finding a way to synthesize this bullshit into the attack that it is. It's nothing more than an extension of the tribal control that's been on top of our society and all of the societies from the beginning of time. Whoever's running the fucking thing, they don't want other people getting in the way and saying, hey, it could be like this. We might be able to consider these possibilities. No, they're just putting up a bogus, full of shit, wall of nonsense defense that a lot of people are chilling out and taking it easy on right now and not fighting hard enough. And it's like we had a guest on a couple of shows ago. Russell was saying he doesn't think this legalization is going to go through. And on the one hand, that's a good thing and a bad thing. This is the pickle we've stick handled ourselves into, because if this bundle of bullshit laws that they've got now goes through and becomes the cannabis thing, all kinds of people are going to be doing time. People are going to go to jail again. It's going to start over. I mean, this has all been created in a back room. There's no mistake about this. Is that a motorcycle cop now? Oh no, good. Anyway, this is the problem, is that they're creating this story about how terrible it is and how it must be stopped and how it's going to cost more to have people be able to use it. Well, we've got all kinds of data here, and there's all kind of historical background that will prove that that is a complete load of nonsense. You will face diminishing costs on a lot of levels. On medical levels alone, I don't even know what the expenditure is in the Ontario healthcare system or all of the healthcare systems of Canada, but or United States or anywhere for that matter. There are so many illnesses and diseases and problems and issues that people have that they would not have. They wouldn't have those problems if they were properly nourishing themselves with this vitamin, with these amino acids, with these particular proteins. And can we please get to the point where we're not crying, oh, can we take the THC out of there so no one gets high? Can we just have the CBDs? No, we can't just have the CBDs. It's a holistic approach. Just take the whole thing. When you do cannabis oil, when you have cannabis oil, you're taking an entire plant. This won't be a lesson on how to do it, but you're taking an entire plant, 6-8 feet tall or whatever it is, and you're distilling it down into a 60-gram, slightly more than this, coffee, which was delicious here, by the way, Pacific Junction Hotel. Slightly more than this from a plant, and you're gradually plugging it into your endocannabinoid system, which is something that these punks never happen to mention in their taxation, extra policing, and enforcement bullshit stories. I can't believe I'm the only one that sees this, and I'm looking forward to having more guests on the show that are aware of this. The veterans, the green veterans, we're going to have a representative from that group on the show. These are folks that have served the country in a military capacity, have found through their own experiences of pain and etc. that the cannabis application has been the best thing they could come across. And now there are new rules and regulations on the way that are somehow going to put these folks at a disadvantage. Support the troops! Yeah, don't fuck up the troops by taking away one of the most powerful medicines that they want, that they need, that they can use. Now, I'm not in the military, never have been, never will be, but I'm sure interested in talking to someone with that experience, and they'll be coming on the show in the next couple of weeks, I hope. Don't have a name yet, but that is a group of folks that definitely need to have their side of the story shared. Because you're not hearing anything other than, we need more cops, it's going to cost too much money, what about the kids? Oh my God. I was mentioning on the last show, too, how the premiers of this country want to delay the entire process. They want to delay the entire process of the legalization. Why? Because they need to know more things. They'd like to have more facts at their disposal, but isn't it funny how we don't need to have facts at our disposal about how dangerous an oil spill is on a regular basis coming out of the ground using an ancient technology which poisons the water surrounding the area? What about the children? Gets burned up into the air and breathed into your lungs. What about the children? all to power around these vehicles that apparently you don't really need a combustion engine anymore. The big news is Google's self-drivable cars, but we don't even really need that anymore. What about the children? Is such a bull. As soon as you hear that, turn around and run away, or get ready to have the biggest argument of your life with that asshole, because they don't know what they're talking about. It doesn't make a connected, logical, sensible statement. But when you repeat it often enough, it becomes the truth, right? Propagandists, right? World War II fanatics, remember? Tell the same lie over and over again. Eventually they believe it. Well, the availability of legal marijuana means we have to have more policing. And everyone goes, oh, okay. No, we don't. Not if we do it properly. And for those premiers of the country that want to delay things, get over yourselves. The illegality of cannabis itself is the problem. Not bringing it back to where it was before all of the intervention and information suppression took place in our little tribal culture. That's the illegal thing you need to be worried about, not propping up your bullshit laws from the last several decades, which we've all found are a complete waste of time and have done nothing but ruin people's lives and jack up the costs. The war on drugs, the maintenance against drugs, the fighting against drugs, the ignorance of what drugs do, the devout refusal to speak about them at all in any kind of an honest manner in the educational system, that's what's costing more money. That's what's raising the cost and the price of running a society, not having access to a free plant. Can I get a Caesar salad over here too for the end of the show? And just leave the paperwork on the table that I need to fill out to see if it's okay if I can have lettuce from the Prime Minister, okay? It's the same bullshit. So one of the reasons, I guess, I mean, I just brought up a lot of different things there, but one of the main reasons, I guess, I would like the premiers of these provinces to back off and these cops to wake up and everybody else is, what are we trying to promote here? This little tribe of ours. What are we trying to promote? We're trying to promote a culture. We're trying to promote democracy. Remember that word? Remember that fake little sing-song dingle-dangle Christmas decoration they dangle at the end of your nose? Democracy. Well, when are these people going to really start getting involved with that? Never. I'm not an idealist. I don't think they're really going to do it, but I'm going to use it to call them out because the first Canadian study examining the patient's use of cannabis dispensaries finds high satisfaction. And I guess that was supposed to be some kind of pun. On this website, ubc.ca. You might have heard of it. It's the University of British Columbia, another fine Canadian province. And the study says that the patient's use of cannabis dispensaries is highly satisfactory. The end. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need to go, yes, but the government would like to shut those places down. Yes, but the government would like to trot out this hoary old bullshit line about what about the children? Yes, but the government wants to wait another year because they don't know exactly what's going to happen and they're not exactly sure how it's going to go. So they do want to reserve the card where they get to say later on, no, we're not going to do this at all. We delayed it another year to check things out and now we're not going to do it at all. You don't get to play that card. Pretend you're actually in the democracy that you constantly brag about and understand that people like myself who need this fucking shit and anybody else that wants to try something and anybody else that's had the doors slammed in their face because they didn't have another medical option available, fuck that. We're looking at a democratic study here. Patients' use of cannabis dispensaries finds high satisfaction from the UBC, okay? Patients who use it for therapeutic purposes, CTP, rate storefront dispensaries highly for quality, safety, availability, and efficiency, but less highly for cost compared to some other cannabis sources. So there's some other cannabis sources too, but let the market find itself. Shoppers Drug Mart, you don't get to tell everybody for years, no, don't have this, lobby against the availability of cannabis, tell your premier, tell your elected representative, no, this is bad things will happen. And then finally we get to the place where maybe it's going to go through and they want to be the exclusive vendor. What kind of monsters run a place like that? Ones with a loyalty program, that's what kind. So that's in the ubc.ca. Check that out. It's called democracy, you fucking premiers. Okay, now they trotted Rachel Notley out there. They put her out there because, you know, she's she's the NDP one that everybody hated for a while, especially in Alberta, and then it turns out things aren't as bad as they thought, so, you know, they let her do the talking instead of Brian Pallister. Then we move on to cannabis consultations have fueled a debate over who gets to sell recreational pot. Okay, that's what I was just talking about. Why would there be a debate for this? Hey, Steve, do you want to sell recreational pot? Yeah, okay. Okay, Steve's selling recreational pot. Hey, Bill, do you want to sell recreational pot? No, I'm not into that. Okay, you don't have to. The end. Like, this stuff's easy, man. This is really basic shit. Don't let these clowns twist all of this into nonsense. But here it is again, cbc.ca. Debate over who gets to sell it. I understand the Liquor Board of Ontario wants to sell it, but I also understand they like to threaten strikes and go on strike once in a while so they don't get to sell it. Not exclusively, anyway. But yet that was one of the first places that the official representatives of ourselves wanted to go, oh, we have to get the LCBO to sell. If the LCBO threatens a strike and goes on strike and I need a dose and they're on strike because the guy wants to make $3 more an hour than anybody else, tough. I need to go to a different store. You can't hold anybody ransom for that. The moment that no one even realized this shouldn't even have been a proposal. Someone should have looked at that and said, well, what if there's a strike and a medical patient well, then we can't do that. End of discussion. This stuff is basic. It's really easy. I know I'm making a lot of simplicity out of some complicated issues because somebody needs to. A community center in St. Stephen heard conflicting opinions echo through its halls Monday. Who wrote this? This sounds like a novel. It was echoing through the halls. Or they said on who or shouldn't be allowed to, who or should, on who or who not should be allowed to sell recreational cannabis. The select committee is touring New Brunswick to hear the public's thoughts on how and where to distribute marijuana when it's legalized, whether it's privatized or sold through a crown corporation or pharmacies. Oh my God. Who is trying to say that a crown corporation, like the post office or anything to do with the friggin' queen or anybody that sits in her seat or anything? No. I mean, if you want to pick some up and sell it, go ahead. But you can't stop anybody else from doing it. So that's who wants it. That's who needs it. That's how fast. And that's where you should be able to get it. Because cannabis chemicals stop prostate cancer growth. I raised this issue last week and the week before, and I'm going to drill it into your heads like it's a friggin' pizza commercial. It doesn't say cannabis chemicals have been shown to maybe kinda sorta stop. It doesn't say cannabis chemicals have been rumored to be possibly in contention for a possibility of maybe stopping cancer. It says it does. Once again, cancerresearchuk.org. Active chemicals in cannabis have been shown to halt prostate cancer growth. It's from August 19th, 2009. This is old news. And yet, what about the children? What about the children of the people that have been sentenced to die? Who then get to sit there and watch their dad deteriorate? Who get to sit there and wonder why this terrible, sneaky, awful cancer thing has changed their life to the point where they don't know if their dad is coming home, when their dad is coming home, and why it's taking so long for their dad to get home. What about those children in the cannabis? It's not just about being afraid of some idiot who's going to be stupid enough to do with cannabis what these governmental pimples are all okay with people doing with their selfie pictures and endangering their own lives. That's okay. What about those children? Every single child or sister or brother who's younger of a cannabis victim that I know, of people that are using cannabis to save their ass, literally, are thrilled about it. So that's what about the children. That's what about the children. From the Cannabis, cannabis.co. The UN Drug Office can't find a single cannabis drug death despite it being the most widely consumed drug on the planet. Can't find one. The UN Drug Office. And you know they're looking. They want to find as many dead people with a joint in their hand as possible so they can ramp up this attack on freedom and science. But that's where that is. A report stating that cannabis is the planet's most widely consumed drug, estimating 3.8% of the adult population using it in 2015. 3.8%. That'll go up when people realize it's okay. Governments have said it's okay, and it can actually help you. If you ever want to find out something about your particular case of medical discomfort, be it cannabis or any other kind of disease or ailment or illness, do check out Granny Crow's List. All right, and I'm going to give you that exact URL for that because it's incredibly powerful. It's Granny Storm Crow's List. Granny Storm Crow's List. It's GrannyStormCrowslist.wordpress.com. An incredible treasure trove of information regarding cannabis and its application towards all kinds of things, from squamous cell carcinoma, testicular cancer, thyroid cancer, kidney cancer, you name it. It's probably in here. You can probably get more help from here than some guy saying, there's nothing you can do. So check that out. That's really important. Granny Crow's List. So now we're going to move into, we're going to talk about Cops or Truth. It's always a different story with Cops or Truth. This one's coming right out of the paper. I've said this before, mentioned it on the show. There's so much enforcement going on of these dispensaries, so much arresting of people, and yet they don't prosecute them. They're letting them go. The customers aren't even being charged, which I'm not disappointed about, but it doesn't make any logical sense. And they just let them go, and that's it. Doesn't make any sense. Just stop doing it. Stop fucking up people's lives. Because while the police are doing that, they're also complaining about the fact that they're burning out. They're too tired. This is inside Toronto cops burning out. Saunders and Tory hit back after the union alleges that the police are overworked. The union says they're overworked. Maybe they shouldn't be busting people constantly left, right, and center, where later the charges are just going to be dropped anyway, and you're dragging it through the court systems, wasting everybody's time, fucking up people's lives, making them late for things they want to do. Kind of sick and tired of this. I really didn't think I was going to be talking about things like this 3 or 4 years ago. I was lying on a couch wondering if I was going to be able to get upstairs to go to the bathroom. Now I feel like I just want to tear the walls down. Apparently I might get in trouble for this later too. I want to make a particular note right now that just the promotion of cannabis as a thing might be a law that someone could be deemed they're breaking that law. Could be arrested for that when the new system comes in. So maybe all this promotion I'm doing right now is okay in the moment, but later on they'll be knocking on my door. It'll be a first time if they do that. Because I've been talking about this stuff ever since I knew it worked, and no one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. Not no one. Immediately circled friends and everything, but other people are like, what? What happened? I don't know. So it's understandable that people wouldn't believe a comedian who used to, tell jokes and be silly and make up little gags and stuff, and maybe that guy's not telling the truth. But I am telling the truth. The chief denies the officers are suffering burnout, but hey, there is that debate going on. This is Police Chief Mark Saunders. He denies the Police Association claims that officers are at a breaking point because of reduced staffing levels. Saunders told a television station on Tuesday morning that during peak times, there are hundreds of extra officers deployed on the city streets. So that's what he's saying. And then the police union, and those are the guys that make all the money on it, right? They're the ones saying, oh, they're exhausted. Well, I think we can solve a lot of these issues right now by just telling these fucking people to stop arresting people who are purchasing a plant. Save yourself a lot of paperwork and silliness, okay? This is ridiculous. So that's two things out of a canoe paper. I never thought I'd be getting to that. Death by selfies. What about the children? They don't give a shit about the children. Unless it's a politically advantageous thing to say that you give a shit about the children. Then it matters. Then it matters. I don't know if you guys know about Wi-Fi, 5G, whatever. It's supposed to be super powerful. And one of the things they're not talking about with 5G is, what about the children? They're not saying it about them. They're not even raising it as an issue. And maybe you're going to say, well, there's nothing to do. That doesn't affect your brain at all, Wi-Fi. That's not a problem at all. And just because they're jacking it up to even more powerful than it's already been and probably just keep doing that from 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 to 4 to 5. Huh? Maybe that's not a problem at all. Or maybe we could talk about it. Maybe it's more of a problem than making up this bullshit about how making something legal is going to actually add to the legal costs. Because I'm done with that argument. I want to get someone on the show that counters this. Like John Tory or somebody of this nature. Someone that really believes or is good at putting across the tone that making something legal and okay and easy access and healthy needs to increase the costs of policing. Doesn't make any fucking sense to me at all. That's okay, though. I know where they're coming from. This is a greater circling around that I'm trying to do right here. But right now, let's take a moment, and we're going to have a little commercial. And hopefully that commercial's okay for you to listen to. We're going to talk about. Here we go. This is live, right? So it's not as smooth as, as the pre-show. But here we go. Oh wow, no, that's too loud. Okay, so we won't bother with that. But that's so loud. This is like underscore music, not theme music. But anyway, so pretend there's some cool theme music going. And now I'm only doing this because one, it's a powerful thing on its own, and number two, I just like saying the word apoptosis. Apoptosis, brought to you by, today's version is brought to you by Merriam-Webster. Since 1828, these guys have known about the word apoptosis. What's apoptosis? Well, it's a genetically directed process of cell self-destruction that is marked by the fragmentation of nuclear DNA, is activated either by the presence of a stimulus, and I think we know the stimulus I'm talking about, or the removal of a suppressing agent, which is kind of the greater issue of what I'm talking about. So even down on a cellular level, we're dealing with apoptosis. But apoptosis is the death of cells, and specifically the death of cancer cells. And if it's activated by the presence of cannabis, rather than just blandly leaving it at a stimulus, or a removal of a suppressing agent, which is like a cop or a judge or a tax-sucking mayor, you know, an unwanted suppressing agent. It's a normal physiological process eliminating DNA-damaged, superfluous, or unwanted cells. Hello, cancer. I'm calling you out. Superfluous, unwanted cells. And when halted, as by genetic mutation, they give you that little example in here. It says, may result in uncontrolled cell growth and tumor formation, programmed cell death, apoptosis. Say that word. Say, you know what I want to get me some of today is a little apoptosis of my cancer cellulosis to improve my homeostasis. These are fun words. So I've been enjoying them because they've been helping me survive. Back to the cops and truth. Cops and truth kind of skipping around all over the place today. My goodness, the clock is ticking, isn't it? Here's a study. This is a Journal of Analytical Methods in Chemistry. In this study, it says it's a study on the reliability of an on-site oral fluid drug test in a recreational context. So that's a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. That means it's a study on how effective it is, these on-site oral fluid drug tests. Okay, so this was put together in 2016, the Journal of Analytical Methods in Chemistry. Not exactly fake news. They're talking specifically here about a thing called drug wipes, and apparently it's going to be okay, and it's part of the increased policing that they'll just be able to pull you over because you've got long hair or because they say they smell cannabis and they want to use a reason. And let's not pretend the police haven't been all over the place with abuses of power. Speaking of iPhones again, one of the reasons we know about all of that is because of the iPhone. It's not just a new phenomenon. We just didn't have it in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and all the way through time. But this new thing they want to do is to be able to pull you over like a you know, a drinking stop, and you pull over and you barf your boozy breath into an analyzer, and they go, oh, this guy's drunk, and they pull him over. The thing is with cannabis, though, is it's completely different, and they keep ignoring that fact. More information suppression, because when you drink alcohol, and I'm not going to condemn alcohol, I mean, we're in a bar right now, but it's a fact that when you take alcohol into your body then begins to try to get rid of the alcohol. And that's why within several hours after consuming it, you're back to kind of normal again, or at least not drunk. And that is alcohol. It tries to leave your system, whereas cannabis does not try to leave your system any more than vitamin B12 tries to leave your system, but you need to replace it, and on, and so it goes. So the fact that they want to arrest people for showing signs of cannabis in their blood when it's normal to have cannabis in your blood, stupid. They now have these things called drug wipes, and it's like a little, a little serviette, I guess, and they can wipe it across your forehead if you're not compliant, or you can put it in your tongue if you are. And based on this particular technology, they're already unfolding a shitload of new police regulations on how to detain, test, and arrest, and hold for extremely long periods of time people who are supposedly high. So back to the test, the study. It says the reliability of drug wipes on-site test for principal drugs of abuse, cannabis, amphetamines, cocaine, and opiates. The detection in the oral fluid was assessed by comparing the on-site results with headspace solid phase microextraction, which I'd like to get on a t-shirt. And it goes into a lot of scientific terms that I'm not all that familiar with, but it says that oral fluid samples were collected at recreational settings. Example, discos. When was this study done? Pubs and music bars of the Rome metropolitan area. 83 clubgoers underwent the on-site testing with one device. Independently from the result obtained, a second device was used to collect another oral fluid sample, subsequently extracted and analyzed in the lab following the same procedure. And then we're getting into some crazy numbers here. It says drug wipe 5A on-site test showed 65% positive to one or more of the drugs of abuse, whereas 75 samples, 90% tested positive for one or more substances with the other test. Here's the kicker at the end. Sensitivity was obtained for cocaine and opiates, while both sensitivity and accuracy were unsuccessful for cannabis, underlying the limitation of the device for this particular substance. And yet, these punks are setting up an entire system of control arrest, and punishment based on a faulty technology. Thank you very much for that. More with Cops or Truth. Now, I have to say, this is probably going to get me in trouble if I say this, but if you go to cbc.ca and you look up this particular headline that says, Fredericton police costs will rise when marijuana becomes legal, chief says, take a look at this woman. She's got this whiny face on her like you can't believe it. Typical sad face. Oh, look, it's such a terrible idea, this whole cannabis thing, because it's going to raise police costs. Sister, Chief Leanne Fitch sees higher costs for training related to spotting impaired drivers. Well, sweetie, if you need to look so frigging hard to be able to tell whether or not someone is impaired, chances are they're not. This whole narrative, if it's going to cost more, it's going to cost more, is a fairy tale. They're making people believe this thing. But she says that she predicts higher costs for the cops, at least in the beginning. Most of the higher costs related to impaired drivers, or what we say are impaired drivers, even though we are ignoring the science and just making blanket issues and the regulatory enforcement that goes around that. It will absolutely have a bearing on our budget, she said. Now, I don't know what this woman sounds like. I haven't seen her before. But looking at the picture, this is the way she talks. Everything from training costs, the acquisition of technical equipment, these added responsibilities will create more staffing demands. Sit down. Shut up. Don't worry about it. Chief Leanne Fitch. And we all know what that rhymes with, huh? Brienne. But anyway, she is wrong about this, okay? Because first of all, it should cause less expense. It should cause less expense because when you don't have a particular problem, you don't need to enforce the things around that thing that's not a problem anymore. It's pretty basic stuff, number one. Number two, even if it is going to be more expensive for you and your little police force sitting out there on a hill, regardless of province or city, tough shit. We are not here to make sure that the police budget is always higher than it was before, and if anything's eating into that, we'll have to forego it. These kind of people remind me of like the turn of the century when the blacksmiths were really raking in the money, you know, and then all of a sudden some joker invents a car and they're all whining and complaining and saying, this is going to eat into our budget. If they invent a car, I won't make as much money shoeing horses anymore. We need to stop this. Things keep rolling, though. Chief Leanne Fitch put it this way. I hope it costs you more money, and I hope it means that your budget overall is trimmed down and that you can release some of the officers whose workload has much to do with cannabis enforcement. Listen, man, it's in the Bible, okay? Page 1. I wouldn't call me a religious person, but page 1. It's right there for you to check it out. While we're on the topic of the police, let's go back to Toronto Chief Mark Sanders. My goodness, the time has flown away. Did you know that Mark Saunders, the police chief of Toronto, last summer went out there and apologized to the city and the gay community for all of the arrests and disruption of people's lives and just basically fucking around with people who were doing what consenting people want to do. And that's all that really needs to be said. They were consenting with each other as adults. But from the Torontoist, it says February 5th, 1981 at 11 o'clock, patrons of 4 bathhouses in Toronto downtown, the Barracks, the Club, the Richmond Street Health Emporium, and the Roman Sauna Baths, were surprised by 200 police officers in a series of coordinated raids. Does it sound like a dispensary to you? And today, and what's going on, it says the law enforcement officials claim that the raids were the result of 6 months of undercover work. How much did that cost? How much did that cost? Where's the fucking price tag on that? Because all we got out of the police chief last year was an apology for doing it. There was no coming forward with the financial penalty. Like if I came out and said, okay, 30 years ago, I did this terrible thing that fucked up so many people and put them in jail and ruined their lives and ran up a huge tab and was the result of months and months of investigation that turns out didn't even need to be done. But I'm sorry. Sorry. Anyways, moving on. This is why people years down the road, like when this happened, Mark Saunders was probably 15 years old as a kid, you know? But he is now the police chief saying, sorry about this. So here we are back in 1981, and cops are going into gay bathhouses, and, well, not that bathhouses are gay, the folks inside of them are. You can't really ascribe that kind of thing to a building. Although, that's a whole other topic when you look at the Big O in London, England. However, back to the point. The point is, a bunch of cops went into a place where consenting people were doing something that they had consented to and wrecked their lives 30 years later, 36 years later. The acting current police chief gets to say, hey, sorry about all of that. We were wrong. We wasted a lot of fucking money doing these months-long investigations and then later subjecting people to excessive mistreatment, especially when it came to verbal taunts about the sexuality of those assembled in the bathhouses. Bunch of pigs running around telling people what they can and can't do. But those raids marked a turning point for Toronto's gay community because the protests that followed indicated that people were no longer willing to endure derogatory treatment, deriding their lifestyle from the police or any other in spheres of influence. So instead of waiting 36 years, which will be, what's that going to be? 2056, 2054, some bullshit. Imagine this. Okay, so in 2054, if we follow this same model, the current police chief of Toronto, who at this moment is probably 12 or 13 years old, he will then later have to come out in the summer of 2054 and say, hey, Toronto, I used to be a little kid 30 years ago, but now I'm the Toronto police chief. And on behalf of the police, I would like to apologize for the months-long investigation and research that became Project Claudia, that became us busting people using a plant. I'm sorry about that, okay? And then we can have a prime minister who some people will like and some people won't like, and we can have a cannabis pride parade. In the way he does in the gay pride parade, walking down the gay area of the city with a nice little pink shirt on, he can walk down another area or the same area, I don't care where it is, somewhere in the city that says you can wear a green shirt. And you can talk about cannabis pride. And you can stop spending money on illegal investigations into what people do in their spare time and in their free time with a fucking plant that grows in the ground and was put here by God. And you don't even have to believe in God to understand the truth of that. Because if they bust you and you put your hand on a Bible, well, that's the God I'm talking about. So if you believe in God, you can use this and take it to the bank. If you don't believe in God, you can say, well, you guys believe in God and you guys said all of this, so I'm going with it. Either way, they're screwed. But I'm so sick and fucking tired of hearing about, oh, it's going to cost more, it's going to cost more. No, because you're not going to be doing a whole pile of shit that you don't need to do. You can dial down the big capital O on oppression. We're finished. We're done with this. Learn the lessons of the Bathhouse raids. You were a bunch of pigs. You invaded people's lives. You affected what they were doing. You screwed up their kids at school. You made them pay extra money. You fined them. You subject them to taunts and torture. We are now seeing that lesson 37 years, 36 years down the road with cannabis, and you can fuck right off with doing that. I'm not going to be pulled out of my car because you say you smelled cannabis, and then all of a sudden you're dropping some stuff here and there, and next thing you know, I've got myself a big old mess to clean up because you guys were concerned about losing your jobs and losing shit to do when something becomes legal. Go be a blacksmith. We've just invented cars. Go cry to someone else about your fucking horseshoe money. Let's not do this same mistake again with the gay bathhouses. And then you got to apologize. And it's not even the same guy. It would have been better if the police chief at the time came out and said, "Oh, that horrible thing we did last week. My God, I'm embarrassed. I'm so sorry." No, they got to wait decades. They got to wait after there's been an entire community has come around the fact that they were oppressed so badly that they've now decided at that year, you know what? We got to have a gay pride parade. Screw this shit. And they were right to do it. And I am calling for that same effort. In Toronto, in Canada, in North America, around the world. I want everybody to understand this is a plant which was put here by the maker. Whoever the maker is, it's a plant. We can all use it. It helps you medically. It helps you mentally. It helps you see past bullshit arguments like this one. I'm going to keep going, Russell, a little bit, okay? We're pushing the end of the show, but I've been told I can go a little long sometimes, so I'd like to be able to do that here. But if anybody's coming, man, if the cops are coming, Russell, just run. I'll take this heat. You don't need to take this heat. That's what they'd say to you in the court later. And were you sitting near the defendant at the time when he said these things? And were you acting as though, Russell, you believed in what these things were going, because we're going to throw an influential charge at him, some other bullshit. We're just tired, man. If you don't think that's a good comparison, the gay bathhouses, because of people using their lifestyle choices and the oppression and the cops and the busts and the parades, if you don't think that's a good comparison with cannabis now, let me know. Green Crush Pod, what is it? Kim, can I get this? Kim, oh, I've lost my producer, folks. Oh, well. It's, here it is, sorry. It's at Green Crush Pod. There it is, at Green Crush Pod. You can get a hold of me. Yeah, I want to do some more stuff. I don't have all the time in the world, but I do want to get to a couple of things. We have, I wanted to quickly get to something, and then I'll spend more time on it next time, okay? Because it really deserves a lot more time than I'm about to give it. But I'm going to give it that time now because it deserves a lot of time. You hear the way I said the same thing twice just because I'm stalling trying to find the webpage on what I'm looking for? And now I have. What about the children? This is like a callback to the earlier segment, but you don't see this very often, but I think it's called Dreher. D-R-E-H-E-R. Dreher's Jamaican Pregnancy Study by Fred Gardner. The full study can be found at druglibrary.org/schaefer/hemp/medicinal/can/babies. Anyway, listen to this. In the 80s, this is back when the bathhouses were getting raided. In the 80s, Melanie Dreher and her colleagues at UMass Amherst began a longitudinal study to assess the well-being of infants and children whose mothers used cannabis during pregnancy. The researchers lived in rural Jamaican communities among the women they were studying. 30 cannabis-using pregnant women were matched for age and socioeconomic status with 30 non-users. You know where this is going? I'll spend more time on it later. But basically, there were no differences at all whatsoever in the formation of their brains. You don't really have this children argument, you pigs. You don't really have it. It's not there. It's not on. Pregnant mothers of Jamaica does not harm newborns. And in fact, it's a neurological enhancement factor. It's not that your brain is getting all damaged. It's that you're taking in information that leaves you so friggin' disappointed in the people that are supposed to be leading this thing. It's damn right nauseating. All right. This is how they control the message. They control the message. This is a strange thing. I'm going to take a quick sidebar here. Someone said this to me the other day. They said, do you ever notice how the sun always looks white now instead of yellow? And I had not even thought about it, but then I kind of thought, well, yeah, like when you're a little kid, you draw a yellow sun. Haven't done that in a long time. I started Googling, and I found a page called Grant Chronicles. I guess it's a guy named Grant. Anyway, it's from 2005, and he's saying that it changed from 2003 to 2004, that it went from yellow to white. And because back in the year of 96, an alumni of Cal State Northridge in California said, he forwarded this question: why is the sun yellow at high noon but red at sunset? But if you step outside now and look at the sun, you won't think it's yellow. It looks white. So how come why did it change from yellow to white? Or did it change from yellow to white? But this college student, this university guy, he seems to think that that is the case. And then it spends a lot of time saying why that is or isn't. But the interesting statement that I took from it was one statement, and that's it. Here it is. Okay, so regarding the sun turning from yellow to white, and I don't even know if that's the case or not, but it was an argument 20 years ago, and listen to this. The establishment first denied the change. They denied the change, that it went from yellow to white, that this guy saw 21 years ago. But as time went on, and the intensity just increased, I guess, of the whiteness, it was agreed among all in charge to present a front that the sun normal color was always white. So I'll just read that again quickly without the pauses. The establishment first denied the change of the color of the sun, but as time went on and the intensity just increased, it was agreed among all in charge to present a front that the sun normal color was always white. Have you ever read 1984 when they say, oh no, we've always been at war with Eurasia, but before they weren't, and then Winston Smith changes the, it's the same bullshit. And they do it all the time. So now we're going to close out. I've got such a fun thing I want to get to, but we'll have to get to it next time, which is a nice problem to have. But I want to just quickly wrap this up because yesterday, turns out the end of July, was the time limit for the Ontario government cannabis survey. And they're just basically asking people in a survey. Now, I have to say, I would think that this whole thing is completely loaded. I think a lot of times surveys they've already decided what they're going to do. Whoever's putting the survey, they've already decided what they're going to do. Then they put out the survey, and they see where the people are good and where the people are bad, and they know where they have to get ready to fight a little bit harder. It's not really shaping the policy. They're not really consulting us on what they want to do with cannabis. They've already made up their minds. So here are a few pieces of that particular survey that I'd like to bounce with you before we get going, where they shape the argument. They form the argument in such a way where you can't win. It's the old, when did you stop beating your wife? You know, that thing, and then people go, oh, I never was. I say, oh, you didn't stop beating her? They say, no. Oh, you're still beating her. Okay. It's these kinds of questions that they put this to. So basically, listen to this. How familiar are you with the federal government's current effort to legalize cannabis? I've been following it closely. I've heard about it here and there. I'm aware it's happening, but I don't know much about it, or I'm not familiar at all. Okay, fair enough. Those are pretty decent little, that's the first question. Then it says, how do you feel about the legalization of cannabis? And you have 4 options. 4 options. You have, I support it and I have no concerns. I support it, but I have some concerns. I don't support it. And I, of course, don't know, no opinion. So you really only have 3 options right there. And then it asks if you've ever used it, and if you prefer not to say, that's fine, even though it's an anonymous survey. I'll tell you where it really gets irritating to me. Question, page 2. It says, how strongly do you support setting the minimum age to 19 and older for having, using, and buying cannabis in Ontario? Strongly, somewhat opposed, strongly opposed, don't know. So now you've already decided that the age is going to be 19. You haven't said 24. You haven't said 16. You haven't said 18 or whatever booze is at. You're just picking an arbitrary number. Now we're on to the next question where it says, when it comes to setting a minimum age to have, use, and buy cannabis, which we already did in the above question, so it doesn't even matter, what are the most important things to use? Select them all. Number one thing is keeping cannabis out of the hands of children and youth. And what did we just say about that earlier in the show? That's the first thing. When it comes to setting a minimum age, select all that applies. So, keeping cannabis out of the hands of children and youth, that's the first option they give you. And it's loaded with disinformation. The second option is road safety. Because we're right back to that. And how can we police this? And what about those stupid little drug wipe things that Alan just showed us don't work based on the scientific data? Well, we won't talk to the people about that. Or scientific evidence on the relationship, if any, between age and cannabis use. That's the one I ticked. That's what I want. I want the scientific evidence. And then the fourth one on this is preventing young people from buying cannabis illegally. Well, sorry, I thought that was the same as the first option, which was keeping cannabis out of the hands of children and youth. This whole survey is gamed. It's rigged to go right there. This is like having the lane at a bowling alley where the gutter ball goes in, and no matter how weirdly you throw it, once it goes in the gutter, that's it. We know where that's going. When it comes to recreational cannabis use, should landlords and property managers be able to restrict tenants and condo owners from vaping and cannabis in their units? Good luck enforcing that. Good luck enforcing that. We're going to close out the show real soon, Russell. I wanted to do some kind of volume writing thing on the undertones of whatever it is. So I want to put this in. Can you do that for me? Can we take the level of the volume of the music down so I can put it underneath? This is the kind of stuff. Turn my thing down? Yeah. On the board here or on the computer? Because if I do, the computer goes.
This one.
This one here. Okay, great. All right. So that's Russell, everybody. I don't know if you got a good look at him, but he looks like the same Russell that does the morning show. With Mike Richards, Raw Mike Richards, who, by the way, just celebrated their 300th episode, so good on them. That's fucking incredible. They just started a couple of months ago. I don't know how he does it. I can't believe it. Anyway, let's see how this goes. Oh, there it is. Yeah. That's the theme. We're going to wrap up with a close here. But I do have a couple of things I'm going to say on the way out. And I just kind of lost where it went. Oh, yeah. 25 Ways to Suppress Truth, the Rules of Disinformation from Michael Sweeney. H. Michael Sweeney. You can pick anyone at all. Here we go. This is number 2. I think John Tory uses this a lot. This is a great way to throw out disinformation. You become incredulous and indignant. You avoid discussing key issues and instead focus on side issues, which can be used to show the topic as being critical of some otherwise sacrosanct group or theme, also known as the how dare you gambit. Politicians are full of this stuff. The how dare you gambit. They're coming at us with a deficit of facts. They have hardly any information. They're setting a tone that no one is kicking back against, and we are all sleepwalking into a further morass, a terrible morass of even further controls and strictures than were ever there before, all being called legalization when it's even more control and tightness around our throats than it ever was before, which is incredible to me. I don't want to be the only one kicking against this, folks, so hopefully get on board here, okay? Green Crush Pod. At Green Crush Pod. It's real easy. Find out, get a hold of us, send a message. This stuff is an ongoing attack, disguised now as a benevolent gift. So it makes it even more nauseating if you really want to know about it. Where's that one? Oh, here it is. Okay. So I am happy to say that at this point, the Jamaican pregnancy study is something you want to take a look at. We'll get into the usage recommendations later on. That's even more funny because they've already made up the usage recommendations on the one hand, and on the other hand, yesterday was the last day to get some feedback from everyone to see what they want to do with it. So talk about putting the cart before the horse. Or the car after the horse that used to have the blacksmith fixing its shoes, but now we're moving on to a different thing. Only it's not from 120 years ago, 130, 40 years ago. It's right now. We're going to use this stuff, and we're going to come after the people that make up lies about it. There are a lot of people listening to the show now, and some people that have not yet heard of the show that are going to get on board this thing so heavily because we got another year, apparently. Got another year to show these clowns what's up, and it's not going to be in the liquor store. It's not going to be something that keeps on being stigmatized like the gay bathhouse raids at 37 years ago. Hey, Mark Saunders, I'm trying to give you the opportunity to apologize now for Operation Claudia, rather than apologizing 37 years ago for something you had nothing to do with because at the time you were playing with your Nintendo. Now's the time to stand up on the right side of the law and say, Operation Claudia is a scam. I'm sorry for arresting people who are simply trying to either act in a free and clear manner or remedy some kind of illness. We're done listening to it. And you're done listening to this. This has been Green Crush with Alan Park. I'm still alive because of this shit. Maybe you want to try that as well. Come back next week.